So we're going to look at first these 8 core principles. Now, very often when we start talking to a member, what we hear is, oh, they're lousy, they're poor, we can't get anything, how do we, they're crap. And actually, people don't start and set out to be a low performer, do they, Ashley?
No, definitely not.
No, everyone, when they join their business, starts with the intention of being good, because nobody sets out to make their life miserable. We just don't. So we've got to, one of the things that happen is there are 3 things that mean that we get people going down that poor performer route. We've got situational and environmental factors. So, Ashley, what happened so we set up a new project management system called Monday.com. Ashley, what happened when I told you were going to have to use it?
I was a little bit upset.
Yes, but you couldn't log into it, could you, to start with?
Well, no, exactly.
And often it's these really simple situation environmental factors that we don't get to grips with. Because you're not a poor performer, are you, Ashley?
Definitely not.
No, but I could have taken the decision that, oh, Ashley's just been crap. He's just not doing what I wanted him to do because he wanted to use Trello. Nothing of the sort. Actually, we've got to look at leadership, culture, and the environmental situation factors before we designate somebody as a poor performer. But at the moment, we've got additional things. We're hearing quite a lot of our members saying, I had some great performers who are now working from home and they're crap performers. So we've got to remember that we've got a very special time where we've got to actually understand particularly what are those situation environmental factors. Do they suddenly now have home distractions where they're trying to balance children at home and work? Maybe they've got noisy housemates or a noisy home working environment. Maybe their home's not set up for work. Maybe they've got slow broadband, or they've got teenagers nicking the broadband for streaming Minecraft in a collaborative mode. Not that that's painful for me. How much is, because your daughter's now working from home, how much of your bandwidth is she nicking, Ashley?
So how much of
the bandwidth is your daughter nicking? Or
we're fortunate. We've got enough bandwidth here, but yeah, she's not doing Zoom calls. But yeah, it could be an issue, couldn't it?
And actually, we've got to help our team members create a new normal when working from home, and that's a learning curve, and it takes time. So the first thing you do when you start going, I've got to perform poor performer, is actually think about what has happened. What has actually happened? Oh, I do have a picture there. It's grayed out. Is the next key principle is, and this is about the leadership thing, is we get the team we deserve. The culture of your firm is determined by the worst behavior you will tolerate. So let me remind you, the culture of your firm is determined by the worst behavior you will tolerate. So translate that. If you don't say something to your team member, they're not going to change it. Because we learn from each other. Well, if so-and-so can get away with that, I can get away with that. If so-and-so is late with their timesheet, I don't need to do that. If so-and-so doesn't tell you about what they're going to bill at the end of the week, well, I don't need to do that because there's no consequences. We look at each other. Well, what does the boss tolerate? And actually, you've seen that. There's some stuff that I will say, we have to do this, and then I don't talk about it, do I? And you're like, well, if it's not important, I won't talk about it. Oh. So we get the team we deserve. And, if we take shortcuts with how we manage, there is a fallout. And I see so often people abdicating their responsibility. This is the biggest thing. As soon as you get a member of staff, whether they're freelance, whether they're permanent, whether they're temporary, whether they're agency, whatever basis, whether they're a virtual assistant, etc., their performance is your responsibility. That even goes to the suppliers that you use. Their performance is your responsibility. And actually, as soon as you bring on somebody else into your practice, your number one priority is now making sure, one, that you have provided the environment to help them succeed. That they are in a position to succeed as the work you've given them. But this is probably the one we don't think about, that they're comfortable to come to you to talk about the workload and how they're doing. And interestingly, you kind of waved a white flag at me, Ashley, didn't you? You put time in my diary. I said, we need to speak about your workload. Translation, Ashley's workload. But you've got to have that, build that culture where people can come to you and say, I'm struggling. They can come to you willingly and go, I'm not sure what to do about this. So the other thing is we often have a mindset that it's up to the team member to have full responsibility to perform. And that leads to abdication of our responsibilities. You know, actually, if I don't give you a target of how many new members I want in the club, you're like, well, I've done enough, aren't you?
No, come on, you know me better than that.
No, but when you're busy, but it's interesting, when I give you a target, I suddenly find it gets hit.
I do.
You know, and we've got to remember that our team members are busy. So if we don't tell them what they want to achieve, we're leaving the gap that may not happen. And often, how many members do we get that join us when we go, you've actually got a holiday camp culture rather than a high-performing culture? But it's true, isn't it? You know, there's no consequences if stuff is not done to time or the right standard or using the right processes. You know, we say to people, well, you want the daily huddles done. You want that daily operational meetings done. Are you attending them? Oh, no. I'm off here, there and everything. Well, it's like, well, if you're not attending them, who are you giving the responsibility? Oh, I hadn't thought about that. I just thought they'd do it themselves. No, we really have to shape the path. And we have to lead the staff on what we want them to do rather than them lead you. But too often we see it as the other way, don't we? How often have you seen it, Ashley, where we've seen the staff leading the owner?
Yeah, loads of times.
You know, I remember one of our members, and he'd probably say this to yourself, that he decided he needed to be more engaging with his staff. So he decided to let the staff set the priorities. And as a result, the staff set the priorities that worked for them. And at a top level, they worked for him. But it meant that his practice efficiency went through the roof. Well, through the floor, wasn't it? It meant that his costs went through the roof. You know, we have to, it's our business. We have to do that. As Stuart says, what gets managed gets measured. And this is a big one, isn't it? We see these, Ashley, we see these people that go, oh no, they're a really poor performer. They're making my life hell. And we're like, well, get rid of them. And they go, but we can't do that. And we're like, why? Well, we won't have anybody to do the VAT returns. We won't have anybody to do this. And we go, but you're having to redo all the VAT returns every quarter because they're so crap. Oh, yeah. So, you know, the big thing is, if they're a long-term low performer, then you haven't lost anything if you leave. You know, how many members, Ashley, have we spoken to who've got rid of a long-term low performer and said, it's amazing how much happier the place is?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know, and sometimes often the reframing of this is actually the opposite. The longer you keep a perennial long-term performer and don't sort them out, the more chance that your best performers will leave because they can see they're carrying the poor performer. Right. And interesting, we see this as a firm owner. We know the shortcuts. We know where we can safely ignore some of the rules and regulations, but our staff don't know this. And also we don't want them to do that. So we often underestimate how much we actually know and how long it takes for somebody else to do it. You know, and actually, you know, if you want them to document them what they do properly, have all the notes done properly on the working paper, that takes a lot of time. And remember, if you're doing this for somebody else to read and check, you're always going to put more notes than if it was just you doing it. So we have to realize that it will take slightly longer. So I remember, Ashley, when you first came on board in the role, it took you a lot longer, didn't it, to do the coaching calls, to set that up, because you just weren't used to it. And you would want to follow everything by the rule book. And I would tell you, yeah, you've got to do that. Because when you've got the experience, you'll know which rules to break. And you now break the rules, don't you?
A few.
Just a few. But you know now which ones to break. But at the start, you went through the diligent process every single time. And we often think, oh, I'm getting a new member of staff in, they can hit the ground running. Well, actually, no. If you bring staff in with this sink or swim mentality, then they're going to struggle. You're wasting a big investment. Everyone, no one is a mind reader. Everyone has a learning curve, however good they are. You know, the best staff will have a very short one, but you've got to expect when you bring somebody in that they will need some support. If you don't tell them how you want stuff done, if you don't tell them the rules on how to do it, they can't read your mind. You're bright, aren't you, Ashley? You're really clever. Can you read my mind?
No.
Would you want
Anyone?
to?
No.
Because Lisa got a bit of a shock when I started downloading my mind onto our practice management system, so we were keeping all of our conversations in one place, and she was like, oh, you've got that much going on. But also, we want to hire for attitude first and experience skills second. You know, people need to fit into your team and get your why. Otherwise, you're going to have to be continually spending a lot of time influencing someone to naturally work a certain way. And if they get your why, and when they take initiative, they're more likely to get things done in the right way without your support or intervention. And, you know, with neuroplasticity, everyone has potential. Everyone can learn something. It's about whether you have the time or money for them to get to the skill experience level you need. And then looking at the final one of these 8 key core principles, your role, and I think this is the one that most people don't realize, is to make it easy for people to come and talk to you about their workload, to make it easy for them to come and talk to you about what's going on in their life, to make it easy for them to talk about your business and things. Too often we shut down that communications channel. Your role is to provide a culture where people will naturally come to you and talk to you about what's going on.